Expert recruiter Lamar Jackson might have just made another pitch for a former teammate. We talk about Lamar's clear message, Jadeveon Clowney rumors continuing to swirl, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available for you on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcast for 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern times when our regular show comes out. We sometimes have bonus episodes on the weekends. We go live after every single Ravens game and every single Ravens piece of big news. Plus, Locked On Ravens Squad Show is now 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Mondays and Thursdays with myself, Sam Njoku, and Kadri Ismail, who's a former Ravens receiver and a Super Bowl champion. We had a great episode yesterday of that, and if you can't catch it live, we have it available for you after the fact in video form and audio form. Thanks to all the everydayers out there, the first-time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I want everybody, let's round of applause because the Ravens have made it to training camp. We have made it to training camp. Veterans report today, first day of training camp, and I am absolutely pumped. Now, the offseason isn't over, but this is another milestone, another step forward. And before we know it, we are going to be at the regular season, and we're going to have you covered for all Ravens training camp updates. We'll have guests on who are at training camp. We'll talk about what is being seen at training camp, what is being heard about different players at training camp. We're going to have all that coverage, who's playing well, who's not, who's making a name for themselves, players in the roster bubble. I'm super excited for all that. Plus, today in the final part of the show, we're going to talk about some of the roster crunch conversations the Ravens will probably have to have. But in the first couple parts of the show, it is more so going to be about potential additions the Ravens could make. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Jadeveon Clowney rumors to continue to swirl, not only around the Ravens, but about Clowney's NFL future. But in the first part of the show, Lamar Jackson appears to have put his recruiter hat back on, if you will, and expert recruiter Lamar Jackson might have just entered the building yet again. Now, bunch of former Ravens that we're talking about, there's Clowney. The one that we're talking about in this first segment is Matthew Judon, who obviously he and Lamar were teammates for the first couple years of Lamar's career. Judon turned himself into a heck of a pass rusher and parlayed that into a big deal with the New England Patriots. He ended up getting traded to the Falcons last offseason, really right before the season started. And he's looking for a new team. His deal is up, and he's looking for a new team. He hasn't been signed yet. And, a lot of people have linked the Ravens back to Matt Judon. Well, early in the week, Lamar Jackson, there was a story that he was tagged in, an Instagram story, along with Matt Judon. They were both tagged in this. It's from I am J Oliver 410, and it's a text box that says, "Hey, Lamar Jackson, man, we're trying to get Matt Judon back over there and make this push." Lamar Jackson, he reposted this on his story, and then the story also says Baltimore is home with a cross fingers emoji, fire emoji, and the purple devil grinning face emoji thing. So that was on the story. Lamar Jackson reposted it there. And again, it's not like Lamar, it's not this big, like, hey, go get, like, it's not like Jaire Alexander where Lamar is literally like, hey, go get him, Eric. But you can make a bunch of inferences about what Lamar Jackson means here when he reposts something about that. He actually did this with Myles Garrett a couple of months ago. And, it makes sense that Lamar wants to get all these guys on his team, but I do think it is cool when, even if it is just a simple repost of something, or if he adds a comment to it, regardless of what he does, Lamar is actively trying to recruit. I think Lamar Jackson is who Marlon Humphrey thinks he is in terms of being a recruiter. And there's no shot to Marlon. Marlon actually is a good recruiter. He puts in the work. I know he might be slacking a little bit over the last couple of years, but it's cool to have these conversations, particularly when stuff like this does happen. And does this mean the Ravens are going to go out there and just sign Matt Judon like that? Well, I mean, I guess I would have originally said no, but we saw what happened with Jaire. Snap of the fingers, boom. He is signed in Baltimore less than 24 hours later. But to me, it's a little bit more of a difficult conversation than Jaire Alexander, where you have to think about need, you have to think about fit. And while I do think Judon would fit what Baltimore wants to do this season, and now it does have apparently the Lamar Jackson stamp of approval there, it's clear that Lamar wants Judon back in Baltimore. That is what I'm taking away from that. And to me, I feel like it makes sense. You can never have enough of any position, really. I think pass rusher is one where, it's exciting to get as many guys in that room as you can. But for Judon, just kind of going over how his career has looked after leaving Baltimore, he was never able to put together a double-digit sack season in Baltimore. He got to 9.5. That was his career high. He went to New England for the 2021 season. That was the start of his New England tenure. Spent 3 years there. First 2 years of his deal there, he had 12.5 sacks and 15.5 sacks. So he found his calling there on that defense. Now, 2023, he was an injury-riddled season for him. He only played in 4 games, but in 4 games, he had 4 sacks. Now, he got traded to Atlanta, as I mentioned, in the offseason last year, and his production kind of fell off. He played in all 17 games, but, the role was interesting. He only had 5.5 sacks. And, so there are questions. Matt Judon is 32, or he was 32 last year. He is about to turn 33. His birthday is August 15th. So less than a month, Matt Judon will be 33. Is he the type of player you want in this defense? Well, I think that at his peak, he can be an extremely highly productive pass rusher for the Ravens. And it's a conversation we'll also have in the second segment about Jadeveon Clowney. But where is the fit in terms of roster? Because right now, and this is just my personal opinion, if you've been listening to me on Locked On Ravens, you know that this is how I feel about the outside linebacker position. My sweet spot is having 5 outside linebackers. So in my opinion, you kind of have your 5 already set, and that is Kyle Van Noy, Mike Green, Odafe Owe, Tavius Robinson, and Adisa Isaac. Now, if you wanted to sign a Judon or Jadeveon Clowney, who we'll talk about a little later, it would probably either force the Ravens to do one of two things. It would either force them to move off of Adisa Isaac and they keep their 5, or you keep 6 outside linebackers and you have to cut from another position. Is that offensive line? Is that cornerback? I don't know. So from Judon's perspective specifically, I think having a guy that you can play in particular situations, passing downs, get him on the field, and even just have a really healthy rotation and someone that you can trust maybe a little more than you can Adisa Isaac, it makes sense. I mean, if you're truly going all in, you're trying to win this year, and I'm not talking all in as if like trade all the picks away, trade all the young guys away and go for it. I'm talking about vets are getting a lot more playing time over younger guys or more project guys. Then a player like Judon does make sense for them, particularly because, again, you're not – if the Ravens were to bring him in, and this is the conversation about a lot of different vets at this stage of the offseason, when they sign and where they sign, Baltimore's offer would be, we're not going to have to play as this number one guy, and you're not going to have to play this abundance of snaps. Judon can come in, have a specific role, not have to play all the time, keeps them fresh, keeps them situational, and I think that is to his benefit. I think it's to a lot of these vets' benefit at this point in the offseason. So, look, I'd be fine with it. I don't know if there's room. I feel like the Ravens like their younger pass rushers, and actually Jeff Zrebiec of The Athletic talked about this, where if they were to sign a veteran, it would take away from that, and maybe they just want to see what they have first before making a move like that. And we saw it with Kyle Van Noy. Maybe Judon does stay a free agent into the year, and the Ravens, maybe there's an injury, knock on wood that doesn't happen, but maybe it does, or maybe it's just not working out with Adisa Isaac or something along those lines, or they need more production. And then they can go week 3, week 4 and say, hey, Judon, let's get you in here. Let's make this happen. So we've seen that happen before, where the Ravens have guys on short lists and I'm sure they're communicating with agents and saying, you know what, if an opportunity opens up, we'll call you. We'll try to get you in here. But clearly for the Ravens, if you get Lamar Jackson's stamp of approval, or I guess repost of approval, then, you know, you have a decent shot to come in and make an impact, because we've seen the Ravens, they, you know, do listen to Lamar Jackson. Not every single move, right? That's not how it works. And Lamar just can't say, hey, I want to play with this guy. Boom, that guy's in. You know, Jaire Alexander, that was a very rare circumstance. But it's cool to see Lamar kind of, you know, putting in a word and saying, hey, even if it's not directly, you know, kind of making it known, maybe subtly clear. I still think it's clear, but it's a subtle type of clear to me. There are different types of a clear message, in my opinion, here. I thought it was cool to kind of see that come across, and maybe it does open up the door for a Judon reunion. I know that people were talking about it last offseason before he got traded to Atlanta. Is Baltimore going to be the spot he gets traded to? You know, we'll see. The Ravens are always looking for ways to improve their roster. I think Judon would do it, but do they feel comfortable enough either cutting Adisa Isaac or moving off of a guy at a different position to make that happen? I guess we will have to wait and see. But coming up in the second part of the show, going to be diving into the Jadeveon Clowney rumors that continue to swirl. We'll talk about if the Ravens are still a good landing spot for him, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing laws. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you here on this Tuesday edition of the show. We've made it to training camp. It kicks off today. We'll have a lot more conversation about that in the final part of the show, but I do want to talk about the Jadeveon Clowney rumors that have been swirling. So it's been a big conversation point. Obviously, we talked about Matthew Judon in the first part of the show, where the quarterback of the team is reposting, and that's a big deal. Now, Zay Flowers, he actually, a couple of months ago, maybe it was a month ago or something, it was a decent amount of time ago, he did something similar. He sent a message to the Ravens about potentially bringing Jadeveon Clowney back. And we got word from Josina Anderson, who is a very respected NFL reporter. We got this word yesterday. She said she just got off the phone with free agent linebacker Jadeveon Clowney to check in real quick. And he said, I'm still planning to play this season. She also added below that the conversations are intermittently going and ongoing. And apparently, Jadeveon Clowney told Josina Anderson that he's been keeping in touch with 4 to 5 teams. Now, a lot of people have speculated that the Ravens could be one of those teams. And one of the comments under Josina Anderson's post, or at least one of the comments that she ended up responding to, was about the Ravens, where she ended up talking about this whole, it's interesting, the fact that the Ravens want him back, because that's what someone said under her tweet. Someone said, interesting, a lot of Ravens fans want him back. And she said, that is interesting. So a little bit vague there from Josina. I'm not really putting too much into that. But the thing that she did mention, which I think is kind of what you have to keep in mind when you're talking about these potential veteran additions at this point in the offseason, is a lot of rosters are set. And the guys that are still available still are talented, still, I think, have stuff left in the tank. But there usually aren't a lot of opportunities at this point because a lot of teams have filled out their roster. And because of that, players sometimes do just want to wait to see if a spot opens up. That could be due to a training camp injury or a preseason injury. It could be due to a team realizing that, these young guys aren't as far along as we want them to be, and we're trying to contend and compete. So for the safeties like a Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon, who's still available, a Judon, a Clowney, Brandon Sheriff, for example, it's not that these guys don't want to play or they're, not getting offers or interest. It's sometimes they truly just want to be in the best situation possible with the best opportunity possible. And right now, there just aren't a lot, to be honest. I mean, look, for the Ravens, if Clowney or Judon were to sign right now, we talked about how I think that five outside linebackers, is the best course of action. If Clowney or Judon were to sign right now, there's not really a lot of opportunity for them to get snaps because I do assume that Adafiowe and Calvin, or they're going to have big roles this year. Mike Green, I expect to be on the field often. Tavius Robinson, I expect to be an early down player for them pretty consistently. That's already 4 guys. And is there room for a Judon or a Clowney in that fold? Now, we know that for Clowney, he was really effective in Baltimore during his 1 year with the team in 2023, had 9.5 sacks, his career high. He went to Carolina last offseason. He wanted to be closer to home, closer to his family, which is a reason I 100% respect. And he put up 5.5 sacks in 14 games last season. So a bit of a dip in production. And obviously there wasn't a lot of talent around him on that Carolina defense. And he's known for his run defense, right? That's kind of his calling card where he's been elite over the course of his career against the run. But the pass rushing advanced metrics have been pretty hit or miss for him. And the sack numbers as well, that follows where, he had seasons of 9 sacks, 9.5 sacks, 9 sacks, 9.5 sacks. And he's also had seasons of 2 sacks, 3 sacks. He had 0 sacks in 8 games 1 year. That was his year he spent in Tennessee. That was weird. So it's very volatile with Clowney in terms of what you're going to get. And honestly, if we're talking about who I would trust over Judon and the Clowney right now, it would probably be at least, and it's crazy to say Mike Green since he hasn't played a snap, but it's how much I believe in him. I guess I technically can't really say Mike Green since he plays a snap, but I think he's going to be that good. So obviously Adafiowe and Calvin Noy, and then I guess first snap of week 1, Mike Green will be in that conversation too. And Tavius Robinson, I think, is going to be a really elite player for them on early downs against the run. And I think he's adding to his arsenal as a pass rusher. So I guess for Clowney, one of his calling cards is he could kick inside as a smaller D lineman. And not that he's like a small guy. I mean, he's football standard 6'5", 266 is not a small guy. Judon, on the other hand, and, it's not like Judon's small either. He's 6'3", 275. I guess, with Clowney, he has him in the height department, but Judon's a little bit heavier at this point. Like, both guys can technically kick inside and do that for you if you want them to. And the Ravens value that versatility. So maybe that's a calling card for them. Like and it truly could be, especially with Michael Pierce retired, Broderick Washington. What is he going to give you? Who do you trust in that? Do you trust any of his peoples to make an impact? Like, there are ways you could spin it to be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. But I feel like they're going to wait for an opportunity. And I think honestly, the Ravens are probably going to wait for an opportunity too. I guess maybe in the Judon perspective, maybe since Lamar reposted something, they'll, he might be in Eric DeCosta's ear saying, hey, can we make this happen? I'm not sure. But to me, I'm definitely still in wait and see mode because I still think the Ravens, and this is something they do really well, particularly under Eric DeCosta, is the roster is never finished. And I truly mean that, where under Ozzie, and neither approach is right or wrong, but under Ozzie, it was more so we're going to give our roster a chance. Maybe we'll make a move here or there, but he truly wanted to ride things out. And that approach certainly worked. And for Eric DeCosta, it's just a little different where if something isn't working, he will make a move. He'll cut somebody. He'll bring somebody in. Like he's very proactive in terms of getting players in that can help the team win football games. And to me, I think that could be something where I don't expect all of these free agents to sign before the season starts. And I think guys will be cut before the season starts that maybe we'll be looking for new homes, and the Ravens could capitalize on that as well. But it just feels like there's a lot of smoke around Jadeveon Clowney to Baltimore in terms of people thinking, oh, the Ravens are interested, this, that, and the other. I don't see a spot right now for either of those guys. I think it'd be really fun if it happened, but I just, from a numbers perspective, it doesn't make total sense to me. But, crazier things have happened, like the Ravens signing Jaire Alexander with the deal they got him. I guess since that happened, anything is possible. So we'll see if Judon or Clowney ends up making their way to Baltimore at some point this season. But coming up in the final part of the show, the Ravens, with their current roster, they have a lot of things to sort out. Coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the Ravens roster crunch as well as some of those training camp battles and players to watch a little bit as well. So stay tuned. Plenty to come here on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is an ad by BetterHelp. Workplace stress is at an all-time high. 61% of the global workforce is reporting higher than normal stress levels. This summer is the perfect time to take small steps to focus on your wellness and manage the challenges that come with your workday. Of course, most of us can't just quit our jobs or take endless vacations, but we can start small, whether it's getting outside for a few minutes, adding movement into your day, or talking to someone who can help you navigate life's challenges. That's where BetterHelp comes in. And sometimes you just have a busy schedule. A lot of people do. And sometimes you might wish you had more time to schedule out appointments, but the flexibility of online therapy makes it easy to fit sessions into a busy schedule no matter where you are. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel's the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether I'm placing the same game player, watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. And this is Locked On Ravens. I am an Orioles fan. I'm an Orioles guy. It's been a rough year. We can just call it what it is. It's been a rough year for the Orioles. Over on FanDuel, the World Series odds for the Orioles, they are at a whopping plus 49,000. So if you're feeling spicy about the Orioles, you want to get in on that action, you can over on FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher. We're still talking Ravens football here as we always do on the show. Again, I appreciate everybody for being with me here today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day. And let's say with me, training camp. We are finally here. We made it. It is very refreshing. I know it's been a very interesting offseason for the Ravens. It's been fun in some aspects, not so fun in other aspects, but it's been really fun covering this team on Locked On Ravens. We're coming up on my 6th year anniversary, which is in just a couple of weeks here. Been doing this since 2019. This is episode 1157 consecutively for me here. And it's been an awesome and incredible journey. I can't wait to continue doing this and covering this team on this network and on this platform. And it's not possible without the support of everybody who watches and listens. It's not possible without the support that you give. So thank you so much, whether you are an everyday or a first-time listener or somewhere in the middle. We started off in audio form. We grew this, a couple years later, we started video form as well alongside audio form. Social media has been great. I actually just made my personal TikTok yesterday. I have no idea how to use it, but I'm trying. So be sure to follow me over there. All my social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at ChaosStriker34. And it's going to be a really fun season. We have a lot of awesome things planned. And of course, we're going to be covering training camp here. It's a big day for the Ravens as everybody comes into the building. The vets report. I'm not expecting any holdouts or hold-ins of any sort. I do know that the Ravens have some contract extensions that could be coming down the pipeline, but I really don't think that it's going to impact the Ravens. The goal is pretty clear for this team, and I expect everybody to be there, to be present, and to kind of do their thing. So we'll see. And if you're listening or watching to this after the vets have reported, then you already know the answer to that. I don't, because I'm recording this beforehand, but we will see how that all unfolds. But yeah, look, the Ravens are going to have a roster crunch this year. It's always a good problem to have, though. It means you have a lot of talent when you have to have a roster crunch like that. And particularly, it's not just one or two positions for the Ravens. It's at a lot of them where there aren't really a lot of starting spots up for grabs, really not a lot of roster spots up for grabs either. The battles that you're watching, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show, and honestly on the squad show a bit yesterday with Sam Njoku and Kadri Ismail, it's really like the inside linebacker position next to Roquan Smith with Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan. You can look at some of the younger guys that are hoping to make a name for themselves. Can Tez Walker continue to make an impact for them? Keaton Mitchell, how's he going to look coming off of his injury? And he got reps last year, but is he going to be able to, put together a solid year this year? We will see. TJ Tampa, some of those young cornerbacks. I mean, younger. It's going to be like, hey, how does Mike Green look? How does Malaki Starks look? It's fun to see the stars always, in uniform and having, sometimes having their way with the scout team or whatnot, or even just the regular, it's iron sharpens iron for sure. And we actually got an update about who is going to be speaking when the Ravens kick off training camp this week. So today we're going to have Mark Andrews, Nnamdi Madubuike, and Ronnie Stanley. Tomorrow it's going to be Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, Derrick Henry, Roquan Smith. Thursday, John Harbaugh, Jaire Alexander, Marlon Humphrey, and Kyle Van Noy. Friday, John Harbaugh, Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, Malaki Starks. And Saturday it'll be Chris Horton, Todd Monken, Zach Orr, and DeAndre Hopkins. So that podium, we're gonna hear from a lot of guys. I'm pumped for Jaire on Thursday, by the way. That's probably the one I'm most looking forward to. Obviously, Lamar is always fun to hear from and kind of pick his brain. I assume, a lot of Jaire questions before Jaire speaks. There will be some other stuff, probably on some other storylines. Maybe Harbaugh will be asked about him, Matthew Judon or Jadeveon Clowney. Who knows? Probably the Marcus Williams comments will be, brought up in those as well. But we'll see. I just think right now training camp is an opportunity for guys to shake the rust off. Tyler Loop is another one. Obviously, he's going to be a player that everybody's going to have their eyes. And, of course, you're looking at him as somebody that could make or break a couple of games this year for them, assuming he does win that kicker job, and I fully expect him to. But that's the name of the game, right, in terms of guys who are improving their stock or lowering their stock. Usually there are more positional battles than the Ravens have this season, and I think, again, that's a good problem to have. And I'm not even calling it a problem, to be honest. It's just a good situation to be in general, where when you have a team as stacked as this one, it really is less about, oh, these guys are competing with these guys. It literally is just about, hey, let's get as good as we can against each other. And the thing that I love about the Ravens competing against each other with that iron sharpens iron is, first of all, the defense has to go up against Lamar Jackson in practice, right? We know how hard it is for opposing defenses to get a grip on defending Lamar. It's difficult. He's one of the best in the league, and he's extremely hard to game plan for, extremely hard to execute against as well. So when you as a team have Lamar Jackson on your side, you're going to get better every day because he and that offense, and it's not just Lamar, it's obviously Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, everybody, they're going to test you defensively. And on the same side of that, I guess a different side of the coin, but still the same point, is Lamar Jackson and the offense have to go up against a very, very good defense, one of the best in the league every single day at practice. And so it's, Zay gets to go up against Marlon Humphrey, Derrick Henry, and Roquan Smith. And I know that pads aren't on yet, so you truly, like, for in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, you're not going to get the full picture until the pads come on. Qadri Ismail and I have talked about that a lot on the show, especially because Q has gone through NFL training camps. I mean, he's a vet in those. So, he's kind of made it clear that, like, you don't really get the full picture till the pads come on, but it's still nice to kind of have the takeaways and the early takeaways, I'd say, from everything that happens at training camp. And, it's just momentum. It's stacking days. Like Tez Walker stacked days during spring practices, OTAs, and minicamp. Tyler Loop kind of did the opposite. He had a couple of rough days. And it's about the coaching staff working with the young players. That's where I kind of am on Tyler Loop. I've talked about that here on this show, where it's spring training in baseball. It's tinkering and tweaking some of the things that Loop came into the NFL with from college, and the Ravens getting him exactly to where they want him to be. You don't want to do that in like week 2 of the regular season, preparing for the home opener, right? You want to have that all ironed out by the time the season starts. When it's time to do that, well, it's during the time where it doesn't count. So, it doesn't matter if you miss 4 kicks in a August practice. I mean, as long as you make him in the November game, that's all that counts. So I expect that to be the name of the game as well. It's just getting the young guys up to speed, because the Ravens, they have the star power. They're not only going to be relying on those guys, and of course, Lamar and everybody to set an example, but it's about the younger guys being able to be put in a spot like Nate Wiggins and Roger Rosengarten were last year as rookies, for example, to be able to contribute for a team that is trying to win a Super Bowl and contribute in a really effective way. So again, we will have all the coverage for you here on Locked On Ravens, daily updates on what's going on at training camp, getting guests on who are boots on the ground, on the field, at Owings Mills, the practice field, getting the scoops. And of course, we'll be updating you with everything every day about the players who are doing well, not doing well, stock reports, and the whole 9 yards here on Locked On Ravens. Plus, of course, the latest storylines trickled in as well. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. On the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I will see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.